A black woman took in 4 homeless children. 20 years later, they stopped her life sentence. Guilty on all counts. The gavel struck like thunder inside Delilah Peterson's chest. She gripped the edge of the defense table, her 68-year-old knuckles turning white. Mrs. Peterson, this court sentences you to life in prison without parole. Judge Arthur Harrison's voice was steady, cold, almost mechanical. To her left, Prosecutor Riley Grant closed his folder with the precision of a man who already knew the ending. Behind her, Mrs. Patterson, Delilah's neighbor, sobbed, her cries mixing with the whispering storm rippling through the courtroom. The evidence against Delilah lay displayed like goods in a glass case. Fingerprints on the weapon, suspicious transfers into her account, surveillance showing her near the crime scene. Too neat, too perfect. A bailiff stepped forward with handcuffs. Delilah's mind shot back 20 years. The rainy night 4 trembling boys knocked on her door, the smell of hot cocoa and the promise she whispered, "No one will touch you as long as you're under my roof." "Wait!" A deep male voice rang out from the back, cutting through the shuffle of chairs and the sighs of resignation. Heads turned as 4 men strode down the aisle, the first in a charcoal suit, posture sharp, eyes like blades. The second with graying hair but a warmth in his gaze. The third, youngest, calm with the air of an engineer used to systems and precision. The last in a dark blazer, press badge swinging on his chest, carrying rolled-up blueprints and a poster tube. The leader stopped. "Your Honor, I am Daniel Reed, civil rights attorney. This is Dr. Michael Cole, surgeon at Northwestern Memorial, Timothy Shaw, CEO of Nexus Dynamics, and Ethan Brooks, investigative journalist, founder of Fairwatch." He drew a breath. "We are Mrs. Peterson's 4 sons. We have suppressed evidence proving she was framed, and witnesses once threatened are ready to testify." Prosecutor Grant shot up. "Objection! The verdict is final." "Give us 10 minutes," Daniel cut in firmly. "Enough to prove the digital chain of evidence was tampered with, and that the so-called victim was misidentified, a man we believe actually died years ago." Judge Harrison leaned forward, his eyes lingering on the 4 men, then back at Delilah. A murderer on paper, yet a mother who had raised a lawyer, a doctor, a tech CEO, and a journalist. He struck his gavel. "The court will stay the execution of sentence. 10 minutes granted." Timothy Shaw plugged a USB into the courtroom screen. Metadata appeared, timestamps off by 37 milliseconds between frames, 8,423 to 8,431. Hash strings failing to align. Video evidence clean to the point of forgery. He pointed to splices and algorithmic pinholes. Dr. Michael Cole laid down a folder. The left versus right knee surgery scars on Eddie Costanos in last week's broadcast do not match the right knee injury of the man claiming to be Eddie at Pier 15 years ago. Ethan Brooks raised a FOIA envelope. Dental records, conflict, and money trails from charities into shell companies surfaced right before the accident. "You're saying the victim wasn't Eddie Costanos?" the judge asked. Daniel looked straight into the courtroom camera. "Your Honor, the real Eddie died long ago. An imposter, Marcus Webb, known as the surgeon, wore his identity for 20 years and staged this death to destroy my mother's final years." Gasps rippled across the room. From the far corner behind a marble column, Delilah glimpsed a shadowed figure. Her spine went cold. The face belonged to the past, to a night that should have been buried. She closed her eyes, steadying herself. "Don't shake. My sons are here. The light has returned." The gavel cracked again. "This court suspends execution of sentence. An evidentiary review will reconvene at 2 p.m. today. Judicial police, protect the defendant and the presenting parties. The handcuffs froze mid-air. Delilah sagged, then saw them. Daniel, Michael, Timothy, Ethan, closing in. Mama D, just 2 words. The ice around her heart shattered. Yet the warmth pulled back old smells of mildew, rain, a knock at 2:47 a.m., hot cocoa, a torn envelope of $25,000. And Pierre, 15 years ago, the night a stray bullet ripped across her chest. Memory, cornered like a beast, roared awake. 20 years it had never slept. Your Honor, Daniel said at last, voice low but resonant. This all began on a rainy night 20 years ago. 2:47 a.m. The pounding on the door was like the fist of a storm. Delilah jolted out of bed, her heart racing in rhythm with the rain. Through the peephole she saw 4 boys, Danny, around 12, Mike, 10, Tim, 9, Ethan, 8. Their faces were pale, hair-drenched, sleeves torn at the elbows, a fresh scratch on Danny's cheek still bleeding. Come in, boys. Another minute out there and you'll catch pneumonia. She opened the door. The smell of rain mixed with steaming milk. On the gas stove, cocoa simmered in a small pot. They sat around the wooden table, tiny hands wrapped around mugs, shyly murmuring, "Thank you." Ethan, the youngest, whispered, "Ma'am, are you calling the police?" Mike shook his head frantically, eyes glistening. They won't believe us. Tim darted glances around the house, memorizing everything. Windows, locks, the wall phone cord. Danny, the eldest, spoke like a grown man. We don't have a home anymore. They told their story in broken fragments. Their parents had died in an accident 2 years earlier. Eddie Costanos, a distant relative, took them in legally. At Eddie's house, his friends came and went. The boys worked for food. Work that no 12-year-old should ever know. Danny had planned their escape for months, waiting for a night when the men were distracted in a deal. Could we just stay here for one night? Tomorrow we'll go. Delilah looked at them, thin but polite. Eyes aged too early, yet burning with hope. Eyes she knew from her own childhood. She nodded. No one touches you under this roof. One sentence, and the boys exhaled as if breaking the surface of water. On the 4th morning, a tall, gaunt man in a tailored suit stepped through the door, Eddie Costanos. 2 guards flanked him like stage props. The faint scent of cigars and expensive cologne clung to him, carried in with the rain. "Mrs. Peterson, I've come to reclaim my property." He laid a folder on the table. Guardianship papers, court orders, medical files, all valid. Then he pulled out a brown envelope. $25,000. They're not yours. Delilah heard the tick of the clock, each minute hand cutting an inner line. 25,000 meant paying down her late husband's hospital bills, keeping the house from foreclosure, a real computer for Tim. She smelled the mold of long poverty, heard the hiss of compromise. Then she lifted her eyes, the boys huddled in the hallway, hardly daring to breathe. In Danny's gaze, she saw him bracing for betrayal, the lesson life had already taught him. She took the envelope, then tore it in half. "Get out of my house, Mr. Costanos, and don't come back." Eddie's face didn't change, but his eyes thinned like cracking ice. "Very brave, Mrs. Peterson, very unwise. I always take back what is mine." He turned. At the doorway, Danny stood tall, hands trembling but eyes bright, with a faith just rescued from the edge. 5 years of warped peace followed. By day, Delilah cleaned schools. By night, she studied for her degree. Danny, now 17, received a thick scholarship packet from Northwestern. Mike, 15, volunteered at a free clinic. His hand surprisingly skilled. Tim, 14, built a computer out of scrap electronics, learning code from old manuals. Ethan, 13, wrote for the church bulletin, snapping license plates of unfamiliar cars, quietly building a witness log. Then the phone rang. Eddie's voice, smooth as velvet over steel. "I've been patient long enough. Strange, isn't it? A janitor who pays tuition, buys a used car, buys computers. The police will surely be curious." He threw his ace. "Danny's trust fund has already hit $500,000, and I am the legal guardian. If he gets estranged, oh, there will be questions about those withdrawals." A black sedan parked across the street, staring like an unblinking eye. Another rainy afternoon, the phone rang again. This time, a young woman's voice. "My name is Sarah Chen. My brother, Michael Chen, he's 11. He escaped Eddie 2 weeks ago." Eddie caught him again. "He says he'll trade Michael for your Mike, 1 for 1. Midnight, Pier 47. If not..." Her voice broke. Michael Cole's fists clenched white. He hissed through his teeth, "We're going." Delilah shook her head. "No." Danny slammed the table. "If we don't, the boy dies." Tim murmured, "We can't call the cops." The guardianship papers are still in his hands. Ethan opened his notebook. "I'll tip off an independent reporter, from a distance, with a camera. At least we'll have light." Pier 47. Midnight. Rain strung the air like wire. The 4 boys and Delilah stood together before the rusted maze of containers. Eddie appeared, slicked back hair, dark trench coat, 2 shadows flanking him. In front of him, a trembling boy, Michael Chen, the same name as Mike Cole, wrenching the would-be doctor's heart. "They've grown too much," Eddie said, his smile razor-thin. "Time to come home." "Home is here," Danny answered, standing firm. "Home is where the papers say it is." Eddie narrowed his eyes. Negotiations collapsed. One thug drew a gun. From the dark, Sarah Chen lunged with a crowbar, smashing his wrist. The gun clattered away with a shot. Chaos flooded in. Danny tackled Eddie, both crashing on wet ground. Eddie twisted like a cat, knife flashing at Danny's throat. "Stop!" Mike grabbed the gun, standing tall, steady hands. "You're a doctor. You won't pull the trigger," Eddie sneered. Crack. Mike didn't kill. He shot Eddie's right knee. Eddie buckled, the knife clattering down. At the pier's edge, Delilah wrestled the second thug. Both slid toward the barrier. Tim hurled his old laptop into the thug's face, buying a heartbeat. Danny snatched the knife, stabbed the man's shoulder, dragging his mother back to safety. They thought it was over. Then Eddie pulled a backup gun from his ankle holster. "If I can't have them, no one will." He raised it. Delilah moved like only a mother could, throwing her body in front. The bullet struck. She collapsed, 4 boys' eyes exploding with panic. Mike fired again, hitting Eddie's other knee. He crumpled, gun skidding away. Sarah dragged Michael Chen behind a container. Sirens wailed closer. Delilah gripped Danny's hand, ragged breath tearing through. "Run, all of you. Don't let them catch you." She pulled 4 envelopes from her coat, written the night before. Addresses of lawyers willing to help, lists of teachers who owed her favors, scraps of info on Danny's trust fund, and one identical line. "Even if darkness calls your name, don't become the monster." She smiled, thin and warm, like an old wool blanket. The ambulance doors shut. On the pier, the story was told by those holding the microphones. A dangerous woman kidnapped children, attacked their legal guardian. The press swallowed it whole. The police stamped it closed. Delilah went to prison. And the 4 boys? They vanished into the rain of the city. Danny embraced the law, Mike embraced medicine, Tim embraced code and digital evidence, Ethan embraced the light of the press. They made a vow, not in words, but in the burn scar across their hearts. They would come back for their mother, but only when strong enough to save her without killing. And somewhere along the lakeshore, someone was already waiting for that vow, to spring the perfect trap 20 years later. 15 years had passed since that stormy night at Pier 47. The four boys had grown into four men walking different paths, but each carried the same core forged in Delilah's small kitchen. Never betray the kindness that saved you. Danny Reed, was battle-worn in civil rights cases, accustomed to the sweat of mediation rooms and the glare of media lights. With every appeal file, he whispered one of Delilah's lines. "Justice doesn't come on its own. You have to drag it toward the light." Dr. Mike Cole had become a trauma surgeon, hands keeping people alive through hours-long operations. "No decision is worth making if it costs an innocent life," he told residents as if reminding himself. Tim Shaw, founder of Nexus Dynamics, spent years digging into data integrity, the shield he believed could defend against false narratives. He was obsessed with digital traces, hashes, timestamps, logs, obsessed with how truth could be bent by milliseconds. Ethan Brooks built Fairwatch, a community journalism network, a nervous system of independent writers, volunteer lawyers, librarians, and cameramen. A sign hung in his small office. "Whoever holds the mic holds the story. Give the mic to those who have none." One winter morning, each of them received the same letter stamped from Cook County. Delilah's shaky handwriting. "Tomorrow marks 15 years since Pier 47. The man calling himself Eddie may be released early. I fear he's not done with you. Don't let the darkness break your hearts." Danny stared at the line, his hand trembling. He dialed a number older than the scar on his wrist. On the other end, Mike froze. "It's really you." 2 seconds of silence stretched an ocean wide. "Let's meet, a diner halfway." They settled on a Kansas City diner, neutral, muffled. The four sat around a scratched plastic table under flickering neon. Ethan placed down a FOI response, dental charts of Eddie from recent years versus old records before Pier. "Anchor points don't match," Mike added flatly. "The surgical scar the press showed last week was on the left knee. That night at Pier, I shot his right." Tim opened his laptop. On the screen, hash graphs and timestamps from prosecution-submitted camera clips. Frames 8,423 to 8,431, lag 37 milliseconds. Splice points. Mike's phone buzzed with a long-set Google alert. Body found in warehouse district identified as Edward Costanos, 68, suspected homicide. Orchestrated from prison, Delilah Peterson, the air thickened. "Son of a bitch," Danny growled. "Either he's truly dead and they're pinning it on Mom, or Eddie's been dead for years, and the imposter is staging another death to seal her coffin." Ethan, calmer than the rest, as if he'd waited for this. "Whatever the case, we need to wrench the story out of their hands." He slid Danny a list. 3 independent outlets, 2 civil rights attorneys, 1 group of librarians obsessed with microfilm. Fairwatch is ready, but for this to last, we need Tim's digital weapons and your legal shield. "First, we go to court," Danny said. "If we win a stay of execution, we buy time to unlock everything." And they did. As told in Part 1, 10 minutes before Judge Harrison, 3 files and a USB shattered coincidences too clean. The cuffs froze mid-air. At 2 p.m., the court convened an evidentiary review. The 4 scattered to prepare. That very noon, Danny's phone buzzed with an encrypted email signed by an unfamiliar key. Tim glanced once. Modified military grade. The message was short. Your mother has 48 hours. Meet where it all began. Only you. Old friend. Danny read it aloud. Mike set a hand on his shoulder. Don't bring a gun. Ever. Tim nodded. Bring data, Ethan exhaled. Bring the public. Night. Pier 47 again. Wind off the lake whistled through containers, carrying back the scent of that old rain. The four stood in diamond formation. Danny at the tip, Mike to the left with his medic bag, Tim to the right with a transmitter the size of a phone, Ethan at the rear, a lapel mic clipped to his jacket. Body cams rigged by Tim streamed live to a worm vault. Write once, read many. Leased independently by Nexus. Written once, no one edits. From the shadows a man emerged, tall, gaunt, hands long and steady to the point of menace. Marcus Webb, the surgeon. He spoke like lecturing. Eddie was an amateur. He indulged, wasted. I cut him out, wore his name for 20 years, shaped the ecosystem so tonight you'd walk here on your own. I fed you opportunities. Northwestern had sponsors, Nexus had lucky investors, Reed had witnesses suddenly brave. I didn't kill you because I wanted to prove unconditional love is only a tale. Tonight it will shatter before your mother's eyes. You're live, Ethan said, voice low but carrying through the mic. 3 outlets, 1 public vault, you can't erase it. Tim pressed a switch. Floodlights around the pier flickered, glitching. Marcus had seeded malware in auxiliary circuits, making beams stutter to reveal his gunmen above. Sirens swelled, not 1 car, but many. Detective Ray Kowalski had Ethan's oxygen of public pressure. If cops arrived late, the whole city would see. Marcus paused a beat, then smiled. Pretty, but not enough. He tilted his head, signaling into the dark, just before SWAT stormed in. Commands barked. Marcus was cuffed. He leaned toward the camera. If I fall, contingency takes shape. Your mother will die believing you betrayed what she taught. Never kill. His words dropped into the pier like a stone. At dawn, in a police precinct lounge, Danny's phone rang again. A distorted voice. Mrs. Delilah Peterson is in a building rigged with enough explosives to erase a block. If Marcus lives past sunrise, it blows. If you call more cops, it blows. If 3 of you leave the country in 24 hours, it blows. Prove she's alive? Mike snarled. Silence. Then a voice, raw and unmistakable. Danny, it's Mom. Don't kill anyone for me. Please. Delilah, beep, beep. The line cut. The room froze. 2 doors, Danny rasped. 1, kill Marcus to save her and kill our souls. 2, stay clean and let them detonate. There's a 3rd door, Ethan said, locking eyes with each. It's called Light. Find the command hub, disable the trigger, and rip the story from their hands. Tim closed his eyes, replaying the call. Beneath the distorted voice, a steady, heavy mechanical hum. Not a generator. He searched his sound library, self-trained, pressroom.wav. Industrial printer. Danny shot up. Cook County Records and Printing. The place that churns out legal docs, court papers, writs. That's where the printers are. That's where forged files could flow, and where the infrastructure is vulnerable. Ethan texted a librarian in his network. The reply came quick. Floor plans, guard shifts, machine room coordinates. Mike tightened the strap of his medic bag. No reinforcements. Any wrong move, they blow it. Danny straightened his tie. Then let's work. And the 3rd door opened, from a clue as small as a background noise in a phone call. 5:07 a.m. The Chicago sky was still black as stone. Cook County records and printing loomed gray and windowless, like a vertical vault. The four men split to approach from three directions, linked by encrypted radios Tim had cobbled together from civilian parts. One main channel. Two backups. "Right side clear," Tim whispered. "Two guards in the shack, asleep. Their IP cameras are streaming a perfect loop back to HQ. I swapped in pre-recorded feeds." "Two guys smoking out front," Ethan reported. "Fairwatch has people staged around as commuters filming B-roll. Nobody touching the red zone. If there's an explosion, the whole city will know who was on duty." Mike checked his tourniquet and morphine. Danny slipped a folder of legal motions into his vest pocket. If things went bad, but there was still room to negotiate, he'd invoke duress and stall. As Danny placed a hand on the main door latch, a female voice rose from the dark. "Hello, Daniel." He spun. Sarah Chen stepped out, pistol raised, safety off. She was no longer the 19-year-old girl with a crowbar. Her eyes were steel. "Sarah, don't. We're trying to save my mother and everyone else." "And my brother?" Sarah's lips trembled, but the barrel did not. "An 11-year-old named Michael, dead 3 blocks from Pier that night from internal injuries. He died calling your names. And you? You vanished into the dark." Danny felt punched in the chest. The image of Michael Chen trembling before Eddie's gun flared like fire. "Sarah, we did everything you could?" Her mouth twisted. "I did everything I could for 20 years. I burrowed into Eddie's system, learned his methods. When he died, I walked beside Marcus Webb. He thought he was using me. Wrong. I was using him. Everything leads to tonight. The contingency plan is you." Danny realized it wasn't a question. "Yes. If you don't kill Marcus, your mother dies, and you live hating yourselves. If you do kill Marcus, you break what she taught you, and you live hating yourselves. 2 doors, both dark. There's a third door." "There isn't." Danny drew a long breath. "Sarah, your brother believed in heroes. Are you sure you want to become the one who buries that belief again?" Her gun wavered a fraction. "Daniel, go in." "Fail. I wired a dead man's switch into the system. One hand slips, everything blows. And don't call in more cops. I've got eyes in dispatch." She stepped back, clearing the way. "Go. Save your mother, if you can." Danny glanced at his earpiece. "We're inside. Echo plan." "Copy," Tim said. "I'm entering north. Mike, take the stairwell. Ethan, keep public pressure. Don't let anyone black out the story." The main corridor reeked of ink and fresh paper. Tim swept with a spectrum analyzer. Multiple radio bands alive. "At least 6 comms on the 3rd floor?" Mike murmured. "Could be the detonation monitors." Danny veered left, reading the sign. "Basement. Mechanical/vault. If there are bombs, they're below. I'm going down." "No," Mike blocked him. "I go with you. Mike, you're the only one who can keep people alive if they play dirty upstairs. Stay on 2. I'll check below and report." A pause. "Be careful," Mike said, like telling a patient before surgery. Danny pushed through a steel door. The basement stank of damp and metal. The hallway opened into a wide room. In its center sat Delilah, tied to a chair, surrounded by bricks of C4 wired into a switch box pulsing a red light. A young man, maybe 24, stood guard, gun in hand, but his eyes unwilling. "Hello, son," Delilah spoke first. "What's your name?" He faltered. "Jordan?" "Jordan. You have a little sister?" "Yes, she's 8. "I thought so." Delilah smiled, warm as an old quilt. "What does she think of you?" That I'm a good man. Then be one, Jordan. Good men don't press the button. Danny crouched behind a column, heart pounding. The red light box blinked with the rhythm of a dead man's switch, release, and it blows. He whispered into the radio. Confirmed dead man's, one holder, need override code. Upstairs, Tim replied urgently. If it's black market new gen, overrides a 5 to 6 digit string tied to a trigger event. Could be a special date. Ethan cut in. Birthday, Sarah's or her brother's. The silence was collective, gears clicking. Mike exhaled. Michael Chen's birthday. Tim. But you have to touch the box to try, and wrong entry detonates. On the third floor, just as suspected, a press room had become a command post. 3 thugs hunched over monitors smoking, glued to feeds, already looped by Tim. Marcus Webb sat cuffed in a rolling chair, eyes still sharp. One guard hissed, "Now what, boss?" Marcus smiled. "Now we see if they're dirty enough to live." On the first floor, Ethan stood in the lobby, streaming live from his phone. Hashtags Fairwatch tagged across 3 outlets. He spoke simply. If you hear any explosion from the records and printing building, know this. A group has been forced into a game of 2 doors, both dark. We are searching for a third. No rallying, no shouting, just describing. So hundreds of thousands of eyes became witnesses. Back in the basement, Jordan's gun hand was slick with sweat. I don't know the code." "Who does?" Danny stepped out, hands open. "She does." Jordan tilted his chin upward. "Sarah. Only her." Delilah met Danny's eyes, the same look from that kitchen long ago. Don't become a monster. "Go, Danny, talk to her. Talk with what she's missed for 20 years. Someone who remembers Michael as a boy, not an excuse. And you," she winked. "I have Jordan. He's a good man, remember?" Danny sprinted back up the stairwell like climbing out of a well. At the corridor's end, Sarah leaned against the wall, her eyes no longer razor-sharp but weary from 2 decades without sleep. "See? No third door." "Yes." Danny stopped 3 steps away. "The third door is called Michael." Sarah flinched as if struck by the real name. Danny spoke slowly, afraid to snap the thread. "Michael's birthday was July 15th, wasn't it? 0715. He was born in 2000. 071520. Her throat twitched. The gun lowered half an inch. A tear streaked through carefully drawn mascara, armor melting. If you're wrong, everything goes. If I'm right, everyone lives. The moment stretched a decade long. Downstairs, the red light pulsed. On the third floor, Marcus grinned, sensing the climax. In the lobby, Ethan stared into his camera and spoke a line to the city, and to the woman blocking the way. Hope isn't a promise of victory. Hope is the choice not to pull the trigger. Sarah turned, walking down the narrow stairs to the basement. Each step clanged. Jordan startled, stepping back. Delilah watched Sarah like a mother seeing a lost child return. "What's the code, Sarah?" Danny asked softly. Her shoulders shook. She looked at Delilah, then Jordan. "The birthday," her throat rasped. 071520. Danny swallowed. He turned to Jordan. "Enter it." Jordan drew a breath, set a trembling finger to the keypad. Each press made the red light flare like a racing heart. 071520. A long beep. The red turned yellow, then green. The room exhaled as if surfacing from water. Sarah collapsed into a steel chair, pistol clattering to the floor. 20 years, she whispered. 20 years just to learn how to let go. Delilah pulled free with Jordan's help. She laid a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "You're not a monster. You're Michael's sister." On the third floor, a thug poked his head in. "Boss, it's Green." Marcus's jaw clenched. He knew the game had slipped. He stared straight into Ethan's streaming camera, whispering like a curse, "This story doesn't end here." And in the basement, Delilah turned to Danny, her smile thin but warm. "Now, go save everyone, son. The third door is open." The green light on the detonator box in the basement had barely flicked on when, upstairs on the third floor, a shout ripped through the press room turned command post. "They're coming up!" The room shook with panic. On the table lay 3 monitors patched to the internal camera feeds, an embossing machine, a metal stamp still dusted with filings, and 4 stacks of court papers. Transfer orders, bail confirmations, warrants, everyone forged but perfect in form. Marcus Webb sat cuffed in a rolling chair, knees bandaged thick, grinning faintly as shadows lengthened in the doorway. Daniel led, Mike just behind, Tim slightly right with his transmitter. Ethan closing, phone in hand, streaming live. Inside, 4 gunmen stood tense. The eldest, Roy, gripped his rifle, hands trembling. "Put it down, Roy," Daniel said evenly, voice flat as a baseline in a lab. "Your wife's name is Lisa. Your daughter's 5, wears her hair in 2 pigtails. You haven't been paid in 3 weeks. And today's your last day on the clearance list." Roy jolted. Tim raised his unit. "We've read your group chat logs. Your crew keeps a funeral fund. No honest outfit has that." Mike stepped forward, gaze direct but free of judgment. "Last night, your heart rate spiked at 114. You're detoxing. You don't want your daughter seeing your face under a terrorist Chiron on TV." The room froze. Ethan lowered the camera to chest height so the lens caught faces, not barrels. "Over 200,000 people are watching live," he said softly. "If you lay your guns down, they'll see a father make the right choice in the 90th minute." Roy clenched his jaw. The 2 younger men exchanged a look. A metallic click, guns set on the table. The third hesitated, then slid his weapon aside. Daniel stepped in, hands empty. "Thank you." He pointed at the middle screen. "Who signed the order transferring Marcus Webb from Holding this morning?" Roy exhaled. "The paperwork came from here." He gestured to the stamp and forged stack. "We just followed orders." Tim lifted a sheet to the light. Form 1027-C. Seal Series is 1 generation off. Someone here held the master key, printed the order, faxed it through an internal line. Rookie on night shift didn't dare question it. Ethan swung the lens to the embossing machine. This is how they planted truth in records, not a story, paperwork. A faint groan. In the corner, tied to a chair, Detective Ray Kowalski raised his head, lip purple, bruise streaked across his cheek. Daniel rushed to untie him, Mike checking quickly, pupils, pulse, airway. Stable, concussion, no fracture. Ray gripped Daniel's hand. "I followed your signal, came in through the freight route, got jumped." "The bomb?" "Defused," Daniel said flatly. Ray nodded, eyes sweeping the young men. "Good, end it here." Marcus sneered. "And you think cutting 1 fuse solves applied ethics, a counselor? You just live-streamed these men's faces," he nodded at Roy's crew, "and marked them for life." Ethan raised his head, steady. "Number U, mark them when you put their names on a kill list. Broadcasting them choosing otherwise is their last chance, for them and their families." Marcus barked a laugh, hoarse with loss. "Fine. Where's your truth then? These?" He jerked his chin toward the machine. "Tomorrow they'll say you staged a fake print run. They'll call Peer a deep fake. Truth is a commodity now, and I sell at the highest bid." "No," Tim murmured. "You sell smoke. We store stone." He set his transmitter on the desk. "Every byte from Peer till now is logged into worm vaults in 3 regions, hashed publicly. Here we've imaged your embossing press, your stamp, your forged batches, and—" He yanked open a drawer, pulling a sealed box. "The original transfer order you signed yourself, Marcus. Inked signature." Marcus stiffened, sweat trailing at his temple. "You're not alone," Ethan said, tilting the lens onto Marcus's face. "You have sponsors, people who love revenge through systems. But Sarah let go of the trigger. They don't have a switch anymore." At her name, the room softened. Sarah Chen stepped into the doorway, not the cold soldier, but a woman whose tears still glistened, hands trembling. "The green light downstairs was me," she said, each word like notarized truth. "Override code 071520. I'll testify how we forged orders, manipulated records, and why killing didn't bring my brother back." Roy stared at her, then at Marcus. The 2 younger men whispered, "Deal." Daniel seized the moment. "Lay your weapons down, sign witness statements. You'll get the best plea deals the law allows. And most of all, you'll go home and kiss your kids tonight." Roy nodded, sliding his rifle toward Kowalski. "I'll sign." "And you?" Daniel asked the third. The man glanced at Ethan's camera. His real face beamed to the world. He swallowed hard, nodding. "Finished with the sermon?" Marcus spat. "You think this is your perfect third door? No blood, no loss?" Daniel turned, quiet but steel. "Not perfect, just decent enough to sleep tonight. And smart enough not to let you tell the story anymore." Ethan closed, lifting the camera. Sirens pressed against every wall. Kowalski keyed in. "Green light building wide. Bomb squad to basement, arrest team to floor 3. No shots unless threatened." SWAT poured in like tide. Roy and the 2 younger men dropped to their knees, hands behind heads. Sarah set her pistol on the desk, raised her arms, eyes fixed on Delilah. Stepping from the elevator, walking on her own, Jordan steadying her. Delilah halted at the threshold. For a beat the room hushed, awaiting judgment. She looked at Marcus, who had tried rewriting her life for 20 years, and said nothing. She turned instead to Sarah, cupping her face, thumb wiping smeared mascara. "Come home with us." Then to Jordan. "You too." The young man bit his lip, nodding. Prosecutor Riley Grant appeared in the doorway with aides. His gaze swept, stamp, box, Kowalski's bruised face. "You've just created a storm," he said. Daniel replied, "No, sir, the storm's been here. We just pulled the clouds apart so everyone could see." Riley pressed his lips, already calculating. Court at 2 o'clock would burn. As Marcus was wheeled out, he twisted back, forcing a smile. "You think you saved the story, but numbers aren't with you. The public forgets fast." Ethan shrugged. "Maybe, but records don't." He panned the lens to the embossing press, the forged stacks, the physical proofs. The fixed camera caught the final tableau. Roy signing cooperation, Sarah giving her statement, Jordan bagging his gun. On the wall behind, a hand-drawn map revealed Marcus's network, red marks across the city, lawyers, officials, fake trusts. Daniel stared at it like the roots of a poisonous tree. "We just cut the trunk and low branches," he murmured to Tim. "The roots wait in court." Tim nodded. "And in the public eye." Ethan added, "And in the records, Mike. And in men like Roy." Delilah ended with a sigh, touched by a smile. "And in good sons." The elevator doors closed, carrying them to the lobby where medics waited. Outside, the sun pulled a thin orange line across the horizon. At 2 o'clock, the court would reconvene to review evidence. The four sons clasped their mother's hands tightly. The third door had opened, but ahead the courtroom was still the arena, where truth had to be not just right, but louder than the noise. The hallway of Cook County Court was like a runway of press. Microphones, lights, and lenses lined both sides. Ethan walked first, holding high a placard reading, "Fair Watches Live." Part signal, part talisman. Rumor fears the light. Delilah walked in the middle, Daniel, Mike, and Tim forming a shielded arc around her. Behind them, Sarah Chen followed, not in cuffs, escorted by Detective Kowalski toward the witness room. Judge Arthur Harrison sat upright as the gavel cracked open the evidentiary hearing. Defendant Delilah Peterson, previously convicted, now reviewed on new evidence submitted. His gaze dropped. Riley Grant for the prosecution. Daniel Reed for the defense. Proceed. Daniel rose, calm, neither booming nor trembling. Your Honor, we present 3 pillars of evidence. 1. Physical evidence recovered at Cook County Records and Printing, proving falsified court documents, including the forged transfer order of Marcus Webb. 2. Direct witnesses involved, Sarah Chen, Roy Alvarez, Jordan Parks. 3. Digital data from cameras, servers, and publicly logged worm repositories guaranteeing integrity. Riley leapt up. Objection. Evidence recovered in an extrajudicial operation. Fruit of the poisonous tree. Detective Kowalski stepped forward, voice rough. Police received credible threats of a mass bombing. Accessing the site and securing evidence was lawful, under exigent circumstances. He placed a bomb squad-signed report on the bench. The judge nodded. Tim took the screen. Here is the hash of all data since 0000 today, stored on 3 independent worm vaults, publicly verifiable at, he read off the string. Anyone can confirm. This is the spliced camera log, frames 8,423 to 8,431, offset by 37 milliseconds. Metadata fingerprints on forged transfer orders, all pointing to one embossing machine. Riley tried to wedge in. Hashes and worm logs are expert opinion. Harrison waved him off. Prosecution may rebut technically in due course. Continue. Mike stepped to the stand, hands still faintly smelling of antiseptic. I, Dr. Michael Cole, confirm the right knee wound of the man posing as Eddie at Pier 4715 years ago. The autopsy of Edward Costanos just reported showed a left knee surgery scar. They do not match. He submitted radiographs and reports. Riley countered, there could have been 2 surgeries at different times. Mike, possible. Except the new x-rays show no trace of old screws. The left knee was untouched before. Ethan kept the public-facing case tight. FOIA dental records matched by an independent dentist. Microfilm archives from the county show Eddie had a missing front tooth, while the body yesterday had a full set. Structures differ. He filed notarized copies. Then the witnesses. Roy Alvarez, trembling, told of liquidation lists, late pay, an internal funeral fund, and orders from the surgeon. Jordan Parks recounted the dead man's switch, his 8-year-old sister, and Delilah's question, what does your sister think of her brother? Finally, Sarah Chen. The courtroom hushed as she placed her hand on the Bible, or swore by procedure, her voice rough. I designed the contingency plan. I held the override code 071520, Michael Chen's birthday, my brother. I chased vengeance for 20 years. Tonight, I learned revenge does not bring the dead back. I am ready to testify about the forged orders, the red points, and the sponsors. Names? Daniel asked. Sarah glanced at Ethan, then locked on the judge. Some are not physically here. The sealed list is in a USB given to Det, Kowalski. Reason for sealing? Riley pressed. To protect witness lives and not derail an ongoing federal investigation. Kowalski confirmed. Correct. Riley pivoted to attack, harping on extrajudicial, possible staging, Sarah's motive. He floated a theory. Delilah coordinated Sarah from prison, staging a play to save herself. Daniel rose before his turn. Your Honor, if this is theater, the director just committed career suicide by handing police the live embossing machine, the original seal, and forged orders wet with ink. He held up a sheet. This is hard evidence, not a clip. And Peterson's motive? Riley pushed. She has every reason to invent. After 20 years of preaching morality, she now spins a tearful script to escape prison. Delilah stood. She did not look at Riley. She looked at the jury that wasn't there, her imagined jury, her sons. I told them 20 years ago, don't become monsters. If I planted bombs, I betrayed my own words to my own children. Her voice was firm, warm, tearless. The court may decide as it will, but the truth is those children, now men, saved this city last night by choosing not to kill. The chamber stirred beneath the surface. Judge Harrison wrote longer than usual. Then, Detective Kowalski, your recommendation on Miss Peterson's custody? Ray's reply was crisp. Based on new evidence, witnesses, and continued risk to her safety in confinement, I recommend immediate release pending vacatur and retrial if required. Objection! Riley barked. Overruled. The gavel struck. Harrison turned to Delilah. The court suspends the sentence effective immediately, replacing it with community supervision until vacatur is ruled. A sound cracked, invisible ice breaking in many hearts. The gavel fell again. Session adjourned. Outside, the press storm surged. Ethan raised his hand toward the lens, said only, Last night, people lived because one person didn't press the switch and a few men laid their guns down. That is the story we are placing in the public record. He lowered the mic, handed legal questions to Daniel. Mike guided Delilah to medical staff. Tim slipped to a corner, uploading another packet to Worm, in case someone tried to swap tapes. Amid the crush, Riley Grant stood still. His eyes weren't on reporters but on a man in a dark blue suit by a column, no badge, smirking with one corner of his mouth. Sarah caught his gaze, her face hardened. She whispered to Ethan, He's on the list. Name? Not here, but he's a root. Ethan nodded, feeling the war of words had only ended its first round. The second would be in the roots, charities, partners, professional storytellers. But right now, amid the glare, he heard Delilah laugh softly, as Jordan showed her a photo of his little sister with pigtails ready for school. That laugh marked a city's milestone. Last night, we found the third door, and tomorrow, the map of red points would be enlarged, hung in the strategy room of the brothers and Kowalski. The story would no longer be who killed who, but who wrote the record. They had taken back the pen. The rest, vacating a sentence, restoring dignity, building community programs, confronting the roots, still awaited. But at least from today, Delilah Peterson was no longer inmate number. She was herself again, and her 4 sons had kept their souls. Delilah Peterson's kitchen had become a war room. On the wall, a city map studded with red pins. Each pin a route Marcus Webb and his sponsors had planted over 20 years. Charities, shell companies, lawyers, law enforcement insiders, forensic labs, friendly newsrooms. Daniel called it the root forest. Cut the trunk, the roots still feed. Daniel Danny Reed spread the files in front of him. Two-branch strategy. Branch 1, legal, filed a motion to vacate Mom's conviction, with Brady Napui grounds, suppressed exculpatory evidence, false testimony, submit physical evidence from the print shop, witnesses Sarah Roy Jordan, Tim's logs. Branch 2, pressure, Ethan keeps the light on 24/7, pull community and independent press as shield. Timothy Tim Shaw tapped his laptop. Sunvault is live. Every document, audio, video, scene photo, streamed in parallel into 3 worm vaults with 3 different providers. I added 2 canary files. If any vault is touched, an auto-release drops all hashes and logs publicly. Ethan Brooks half smiled. I'm calling it Operation 48 Hours of Light. Rotating live streams, explainers, witness interviews. No hype, just process. Dr. Mike Cole reminded them, and the people. Roy, Jordan. They just stepped back from the cliff. I've lined up trauma therapy programs, family protection. Trauma isn't healed by handcuffs. Detective. Ray Kowalski laid out 3 freshly signed subpoenas. I pulled in the AUSA on the forged public documents branch, but move fast. The forest will strike back tonight. The counterstrike came early. 7:10 p.m., 3 noisy channels dropped a grainy clip. Delilah receiving an envelope of cash from a man resembling Eddie in her kitchen. Angled, yellowed lighting. Just enough for effect. Headline screamed, "Evidence Delilah took bribes." Tim nearly jumped out of his chair. Low-grade deepfake plus VHS overlay. He pulled up frame compares. Left-hand shadow sliding through a table edge. Classic overlay artifact. Lamp shadows reversed. 60 Hz flicker stamped over a 50 Hz source. Ethan fired a counterflare. Side-by-side breakdown within minutes. Plus photos of Delilah's real kitchen. A cracked tile corner missing in the fake. Sunvault blasted it public in under 5. Result, comment, tide turned. Channels pulled the clip under review. 8:03 p.m. A 911 call claimed hostage situation at Delilah Peterson's address. Classic swatting. But dispatch flagged yellow. Kowalski had pre-registered the house under Verify First. He rang Ethan directly. Someone wants you no-knock rated? Blocked it. Thanks, Ray. Ethan collapsed into his chair, sweat breaking. Outside, a silver sedan idled behind trees. Jordan peeked through curtains. Driver's Oaks, Marcus's old crew. Mike lowered his voice. No confrontation. Plate shot, sent to Ray, keep breathing. Delilah set a teapot on the table, like an old ritual. We don't play their game in this house. She turned to Jordan. Your sister has homework tonight. Call her. Let me say hi. Jordan laughed awkwardly. Tension dipped a notch. 9:30 p.m., Riley Grant appeared at the door. No cameras, no aides. He stood in the doorway like a stranger revisiting an old home. I came to see the files. Daniel hesitated, then let him in. Riley flipped through photos of the embossing machine, the seal, the paper batch, read Sarah's affidavit. I chase truth, not scoreboards, he murmured, almost to himself. Then, tomorrow in court, don't attack emotional theater, Ethan cut in. Attack procedure. Who signed, who stamped, who faxed, who filed. Riley looked up, meeting them like allies, at least tonight. All right. 11:05 p.m., Daniel's phone pinged with an encrypted message. Court is theater. Donors write scripts. VH Ethan frowned. VH Victor Hale? The name glared on the red pin wall. Victor Hale, businessman behind the Hale and Lanford Foundation, board member at hospitals, funding justice reform through glossy innovation grants. The blown-up photo from the courthouse hallway earlier, dark blue suit, was him. "He'll buy the narrative before the vacate hearing," Tim said. "Too late," Daniel answered firmly. "The motion's filed. If he tampers with judge or clerk, that's felony." Ethan muttered, "He won't leave fingerprints. He'll use fundraisers and charity galas." Mike concluded, "Then we shine light on the donation boxes themselves." They sketched the next day's plan. Daniel. Finalize motion supplement. Chain of custody from print shop, sealed logs, AUSA's confirmation of federal probe. Prepare official witness protection request for Sarah Roy Jordan. Tim. Launch Project Mirror, a public post predicting 5 plays the Roots might attempt. Smear video, swatting, bought op-eds, bar complaints against Daniel, fake medical tip-offs against Mike. To reverse asymmetry, call the shots before they're played. Ethan. RSVP to the gala at Glasshouse Conservatory, hosted by Hale and Lanford. This is where they script. We bring cameras inside. Mike. Morning at the community clinic. Meet survivors of the network. Invite them, if willing, to share in a safe, therapeutic frame. Before breaking, Delilah quietly cleared cups. She gazed at the red pin wall, chuckled softly. "We used to have just a little kitchen. Now we have a command center." Ethan winked. "A command center of trust, Mama D." Daniel pushed his chair back, speaking to the whole room. "No one touches anyone tonight. Tomorrow, we touch their story." Jordan piped up, "My sister, Maya, wants to send everyone a goodnight video." The metal and paper wall paused for a beat, replaced by a child's giggling voice over a phone screen, the sound that made the root forest feel smaller. Outside, the silver sedan had gone, but on Tim's monitor a beacon planted in its fake plate pinged from a riverside warehouse. He marked it red. Hale's got a logistics hub. After vacate, Daniel reminded, "Don't split focus." Ethan flicked off the kitchen light, leaving a single small yellow lamp glowing on the windowsill, a signal they'd kept for 20 years. The door is still open. The house is still here. The light is not out. The Glasshouse Conservatory stood like a glass box in the park. Warm amber lights, string music, the soft clink of wine glasses. The Hale and Lanford Foundation was hosting a gala for its data-driven justice reform project. Victor Hale, dark blue suit, silver tie, moved among the guests like the director of a play. Every handshake another scene. Ethan wore a press badge, dark blazer, lapel mic turned off, he wouldn't break event rules. But Tim's body cam, hidden in a button, was rolling. Operation Mirror wasn't a trap, it was a reflection, letting others expose themselves before the public. Legal ground had been cleared by Daniel and Detective Kowalski. No soliciting crime, no incitement, just record if the other side offered witness tampering. Sarah Chen arrived late, in a plain black dress. She walked alone into the atrium and paused beneath the glass mezzanine where Victor was laughing with donors. Victor spotted her, lips curling. He descended like a gentleman inviting a dance. "Miss Chen," he murmured, "last night, courageous. But courage doesn't pay the bills." Sarah kept her eyes cold, hand resting by her glass of water. "What do you want from me?" Victor scanned the room, guided her to a quiet glass terrace. Ethan, a few meters away, feigned interest in a photo display, angling his button camera toward them. Tim's earpiece lit with signal. "We," Victor said, Don't want a long war. You're tired. Mrs. Peterson's tired. I can clear the board. Relocation abroad, new name, new accounts. In exchange, you correct a few details. Say you misremembered. We protect each other." "And if I refuse?" Sarah asked. Victor sipped. "Then I let the story do its work. You know, in court, no one recalls embossing machines or stamps. They remember impressions, and impressions are our trade." Ethan nearly broke cover, but held. In mirror, words were weapons. Sarah pressed, "You said we." "Who's we?" Victor smiled wide, teeth flawless. "The ones who invest in stories. Eddie was an asset. Marcus, an upgrade. Don't worry, we've learned. Never let every pipeline converge on one man again." Sarah exhaled, flicking her gaze once toward Ethan, signal enough. Outside in the parking lot, Kowalski waited with hand on radio. He couldn't arrest Hale yet. The words alone weren't tampering. But he did have warrants for anyone offering money or benefits to sway testimony. Enter Cole Maddox, Victor's aide, disguised as an event coordinator with earpiece and clipboard. He leaned to Sarah. "Step with me, logistics room." Sarah froze. Ethan stepped lightly between. "She's not going anywhere. If there's an offer, say it here." Maddox hissed lower. "We'll channel 100,000 into a charity named for your brother." "You just confirmed to press the green light in the basement was a code entry error." That was enough. Ray spoke into comms. "Offer of benefit for testimony confirmed. Move." 2 plainclothes swept in through the glass doors, flashing badges. "Cole Maddox, you're under arrest for witness tampering and obstruction of justice." Victor stepped back, face stone then smooth. "Gentlemen, you're disrupting a lawful civic event." Ethan lifted his phone, mic live now, voice clear. "The public has the right to know when memory is traded for cash." Victor turned, signaled security. 2 black-suited guards blocked the glass exit to the garden. The chase through the conservatory was quiet, controlled. Daniel descended from the upper gallery, barring the door. Victor didn't run. He strode, smile back on his face. "Attorney Reed, you know the law. I haven't committed a crime." "Tell that to a federal jury," Daniel answered. Victor shrugged past, until Jordan, the young man who once held a bomb switch, stood blocking the garden doors. Eyes down, voice low. "Please, sir, back inside." Victor halted. He knew pressing further would flip the story live on Ethan's lens. He looked up through the glass ceiling. "Fine. Tonight you win a beat." He walked back, flanked by Kowalski, into a private room to cooperate, his lawyer dialing in. Maddox was cuffed, his phone sealed in a Faraday pouch. Tim nearly sprinted. He had to dump a clone before the timed wipe triggered. In the lot, he cracked open his kit, JTAG cables, reader, laptop with autopsy. "Wipe process is live," he muttered. "I'll blow the fuse first." "Mind chain of custody," Daniel reminded. "Recording overhead cam. Public shade 256 hashes to Sun Vault at every step," Tim replied, fingers flying. On screen, a folder bloomed. Document photos titled Black Tally. Columns of money flows through charities, PACs, scholarships, right column coded recipients, ALDP, Alderman Pierce, JCVN, Judge Kavanaugh, DAG NW, Deputy AG Norwood. Notably absent, RG. Riley Grant's initials were missing. Tim exhaled, handed to Ray. "Get FBI to lock this vault." Ray's eyes hardened. "This is the lever." Inside, Ethan kept the livestream documentary, not Chase. He asked Sarah one question. "If someone watching thinks, just take the money, change your story, what do you say?" Sarah looked straight into the lens. Money can't buy back the night you survived. It can't buy back the brother you lost. Money buys silence, and silence kills more people slowly. Victor Hale faced reporters with his lawyer, reciting lines. Hale and Lanford supports transparent justice reform. If any employee overstepped, we will cooperate fully. No admission, no denial, just polished fog. But Ethan already had film from the glass terrace and Maddox's offer on audio. Operation Mirror had worked. They revealed themselves. The night wasn't done. Back at Delilah's house, they hadn't removed coats when the acrid smell hit. Smoke alarms screamed from the back storage room. Mike dashed in with extinguisher. Jordan pulled Maya, his little sister video calling, off the line, soothing, "We're okay, don't worry." Flames died fast. A small incendiary rigged to an outlet, a calling card. "We're still here." Ethan leaned on the cabinet, breath shallow. Daniel stared at the blackened wall, char as old as memory. "No one hurt," Mike confirmed. Delilah placed a hand on the counter, voice calm, almost amused. Back then, they sent envelopes. Now they send embers. Same thing. Asking me to sell my soul. She turned to her sons. "Tomorrow in court, you say one thing. I did not sell." A text hit Ethan's phone. A photo of charred paper scrap. "Courts are theaters. Final act, Friday. VH, Friday, the vacate hearing." The final act Victor thought he scripted. But the script now carried real stamps, real tallies, real witnesses, and one camera that never slept, Fairwatch. Before bed, Tim uploaded Maddox's phone image set to Sunvault, published hash signatures, sent sealed copies to the AUSA and Kowalski. Daniel finished attaching the black tally excerpts to the motion. Grounds of fraud on the court, enough to sweep the old judgment clean. Ethan set 2 spare batteries by his phone, live stream queued for 5:55 a.m. Mike checked every outlet, then paused by the door, listening to the fragile quiet they'd bought without firing a bullet. On the windowsill, the small yellow lamp still glowed, the family's signal for 20 years. Come home. The light is waiting. Somewhere across the city, Victor Hale reread his own message. Final act. Friday, and smiled. He believed the stage was still his, but Delilah poured tea, leaned back in her old chair and smiled like a mother who had raised 4 sons strong enough not to smash the stage, only to change the lights on it. Curtain down, for now. Tomorrow it would rise before a full court, and the root forest would be exposed as never before. Friday morning opened with drizzle, and with 5 attacks exactly as Tim's Operation Mirror forecast had predicted the night before. An anonymous op-ed in 3 papers. Attorney Daniel Reed exploits media to pressure the court. An ethics complaint filed with the state bar, PDF circulating with a blurry watermark. A fake malpractice tip against Dr. Michael Cole, with cropped photos from some old surgery. An audio clip of Delilah whispering, "I did it," a voice clone, obvious. A light DDoS hit on Sunvault. Every strike bounced off. Tim had published the 5-move forecast in advance, so the public was armored. Original file hashes from days before confirmed Sunvault hadn't been altered. The 3-zone worm system guaranteed no edits. Ethan released a 2-minute explainer. The Confession Whisper had a studio RIR, room impulse response, profile, while Delilah's kitchen had cracked tile, wood grain, and an old AC unit, all producing a different echo. The clip spread like a vaccine. Viewers learned to hear with reason. 8:55 a.m. The Cook County Courthouse Hall buzzed like a concert. Detective Ray Kowalski swept for false fire alarms, the trick he guessed Hale would pull. Prosecutor Riley Grant arrived alone. He paused half a beat before Delilah. "Mrs. Peterson, whatever the outcome today, let me say, I'll chase the roots." Delilah smiled like a mother patting the head of a stubborn son. 10 a.m. Judge Arthur Harrison struck the gavel. Hearing on vacatur for Delilah Peterson is now in session. He ordered no phones ringing, no noise, but allowed court media to record. If it's public record, the light must be enough. Daniel opened, voice steady, setting 3 pillars cleanly. 1. Fraud on the court via forged orders, embossing machine, and stamp recovered at records and printing. 2. Brady Napway, exculpatory evidence suppressed, false testimony polished. Third witness chain. Sarah Chen designed the dead man's switch but dropped the key. Roy Alvarez ordered to clean evidence. Jordan Parks laid down his gun for his 8-year-old sister. Tim presented the flowchart. Forged order, internal fax, rookie night clerk, file slid into the rail as truth. He projected metadata, hashes, photos enlarged, calmly guiding the jury in their minds. Riley rose, not to oppose, but to add, "The prosecution acknowledges the data's integrity. We request the court vacate the conviction and refer the fraud on the court record to federal jurisdiction." The words yanked a pin. Murmurs rippled. Right then, the fire alarm shrieked. Old trick. Harrison frowned. Ray keyed radio. 4th floor kitchen, fake smoke. Hold session. His pre-protocol with fire crews kicked in. Verify before evacuate. 2 taut minutes. Silence. Then the alarm cut. Ray glanced at Ethan. Wait for strike 2. Strike 2 came digitally. A leaked email on social media. Tim supposedly instructing Ethan to produce theater. Tim smirked, pulled Sunvald. "Here's the real email. Wednesday afternoon, subject line script. But script here means technical script, setup, hash, worm, release procedures to avoid poisoned fruit. I posted it last night. On screen, the genuine text burned the leak to ash." Lesson of the day: script doesn't always mean drama. Sarah Chen took the stand. She told it uncut. 20 years of hate. Pier night, code 071520, as Michael's birthday, the moment her hand let go. "I thought the iron arm kept me safe. It only made a whole city tremble. I chose the 3rd door when I remembered my brother was human." Her voice did not break, but it warmed. Roy and Jordan followed, each carrying a family in their eyes. The AUSA, invited amicus, rose. The forged public documents cases opened. The black tally ledger from Cole Maddox's phone, sealed, ties PAC's Foundation's officials. Victor Hale is being invited to cooperate. The chamber froze for a beat, like ice cracking down to the roots. Harrison leaned back, flipping his notes. He looked at Delilah longer than a moment. "Mrs. Peterson," he said slowly, "I've sat this bench 30 years. Rarely have I seen the machinery used so smoothly to weave false stories. Perhaps this court and I owe you an apology for trusting paper before listening to people." The gavel struck. This court vacates the conviction of Delilah Peterson for systemic fraud on the court. A full acquittal order will follow upon confirmation of no retrial from the Attorney General. Witness protection is ordered for Sarah Chen, Roy Alvarez, Jordan Parks. Forgery records referred to federal court. A breath burst from the gallery. Danny squeezed Mike's hand. Tim bowed his head, imagining a hash for this moment, wishing there were hashes for feelings. Ethan didn't live stream. He snapped one photo, Delilah's hand on Sarah's shoulder, an image of the city's better self. Outside, the press forest bristled. Riley Grant stepped up, voice measured but clear. As prosecutor, we will work with federal authorities on forgery and obstruction. And I, Riley Grant, recuse myself from all related cases to avoid conflict. A reporter asked, "Do you regret?" He swallowed. "Yes, and I'll repay it by doing the rest right." Victor Hale did not appear. His lawyer issued a line, "Charitable donations misinterpreted maliciously." But Kowalski received word. Cole Maddox had entered a plea, agreed to hand over the hard-copy black tally at the Riverside warehouse, the spot Tim marked last night. AUSA nodded. Tonight. Evening fell. Rain broke to pale sun. Mrs. Patterson, the old neighbor, slipped through the crowd, hugging Delilah tight, as if wind might steal her away. "I told you, they'd see you." Delilah laughed, eyes shining. "They see me now, because the kids didn't break everything to prove it." In the yard, Jordan called Maya on video, showing the family. "Sis, Chicago's safe now." Maya demanded, "Uncle Ethan, tell another story." Ethan smiled. "Tonight, I'll tell the story of the yellow lamp by the door." Before getting in the car, Daniel turned back at the courthouse steps, worn, cracked, but today scrubbed by light. He remembered Ethan's words at Glass House. "Court is theater. Whoever holds the light holds the story." Today, they hadn't turned anyone's light off. They just lit more, enough to see the roots. The night wasn't done. The warehouse by the river waited, but Final Act Friday, with Vacateur, had already rewritten the ending, the tale of a poor mother once painted as evil by pretty paper. Now, real paper brought her home. 3 months later, the black tally had become the backbone of a federal indictment. Cole Maddox signed a plea. 2 city council members and a county judge were charged with taking money funneled through the foundation. Victor Hale was indicted for conspiracy to obstruct justice and money laundering. Foundation assets frozen. He stayed silent in court, but emails from the warehouse, recovered from the black hard drive Tim and the cold forensic team salvaged, showed that story director wasn't just a metaphor. It was budgets, line items, timelines. Marcus Webb, the surgeon, wrote from federal prison, "You won because you didn't kill." Daniel brought the letter to Delilah. She read, folded it, and told Detective. "Kowalski, if he wants to meet, I'll go." A week later, in visitation, Marcus tried to resurrect his grin. Delilah sat straight, hands clasped. "You're not a demon. You're a man who chose to act like one." Marcus smirked. "You forgive?" "No. Forgiveness is a road, not a switch, but I won't let you define the rest of my life." When she left, she paused at the doorway, laying down a line. Behind was his shadow. Ahead, her home's light. Sarah Chen was officially placed in witness protection, yet Delilah filed a special petition to foster the 44-year-old woman. Legally, she became Sarah Peterson Chen. She opened a community program with Jordan Parks, Door 3, teaching teens how to spot manipulation, how to step back safely, how to break the cycle of violence. A sign hung on the front of their small house, painted bright yellow. A door slightly ajar with light behind it. Ethan Brooks expanded Fairwatch into a civic nervous system, librarians managing microfilm, tech groups, with Tim as mentor, training citizens in basic forensics. Storytellers teaching survivors how to own their narratives without being exploited. His new motto hung above the coffee maker. "We don't write your story. We protect it." Timothy Shaw open-sourced the core of SunVault for the public. Write, once verify many for small groups, local journalists, schools. He named the authentication module Amber Light, after the yellow lamp on Delilah's windowsill. 3 cities piloted it. One local newsroom used it to expose a charity fund racket in a neighboring state. Tim learned to smile when people called him the hash-obsessed guy, because obsession was saving lives. Dr. Michael Cole returned to the ER, but each evening he taught trauma care and calming techniques at door 3. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 6. He started the Michael Chen Fund, scholarships for kids who wanted to be nurses, social workers, counselors. At a small ceremony, Sarah spoke, voice low but warm. My brother died because no one knew where to press or when. From today, kids in this city will know. Daniel Reed launched a legal unit, Lightworks, specializing in vacating cases tainted by fraud. Riley Grant, now at the Office of Ethics, sent him 10 files touched by the roots. Daniel spent nights in Delilah's kitchen drafting motions, eating Sarah's first attempts at cookies, listening to Ethan polish explainers. You know, Ethan said one night, some days the third door feels harder than a straight fight. Daniel chuckled. Yeah, because it demands we keep living, not burn it all down and walk away. A year later. Tuesday, the day Destiny liked to call, came with the governor's office on the line. Mrs. Delilah Peterson, the state awards you the Humanitarian Medal for service to family navigation and at-risk youth. Delilah smiled into the receiver. In the kitchen, Ethan was teaching Maya how to hold a camera. Mike was mock arguing with Tim over the correct name of Amber Light. Daniel was showing a 10th grader how to draft an affidavit to save her friend from deportation. Dinner was noisy, in a healthy way. Governor, Delilah said slowly, I accept. But remember, I never did it alone. That night the family gathered on the porch. The yellow lamp still burned. Sarah leaned close. Mama, this lamp, it used to be so we'd know there was still a home, right? Delilah nodded. Yes, and now it reminds me the third door always exists, if someone dares to turn on the light. Jordan told a story. A 13-year-old at door 3 turned in his switchblade, traded it for a bike repair class. Ethan was already editing a clip about it. The hero was the boy, not the cameraman. They still visited the prison. Marcus saw them a few more times. Some days he sat silent, eyes drifting. Some days he tried philosophy. Good and evil are just what the winners say. Tim answered quietly, no. Good and evil are what survivors say, and they'll keep saying it if we keep their records. Marcus chuckled dry, but didn't argue. Maybe, somewhere in that tunnel, he glimpsed a ray. Victor Hale chose to fight in court. He hired new PR, reframed. The system was abused by a few bad actors. But the black tally ledger and wet signatures stayed stone. A USA scheduled trial. Ethan reminded the team, we don't cheer someone's downfall. We cheer the process done right. Daniel nodded. Exactly. Delilah's house grew. 2 new rooms, a dining table stretched to seat 10, 12 if Maya brought friends. Mrs. Patterson often came to tell the old days. The kids laughed about the dented cocoa pot. Tim framed the first Sunvault hash on the wall like a family crest. Mike taped a blood drive calendar to the fridge. Ethan built a little glass cabinet. Inside, a model of a right knee screw, a cracked kitchen tile, a child's scrawl on paper. The third door. Some nights were heavy, Ethan admitted to camera. I wanted to curse, I wanted to smash things, but Mama D said, if you smash it, who cleans? He turned to Delilah. She smiled. Smashing feels good. Cleaning rebuilds the house. We chose to rebuild. Everyone laughed. And that laughter, strangely, didn't vanish. It lingered on the shelves, curled into the law books, and fell asleep in the yellow lamp. Epilogue. One Sunday afternoon, Door 3 held its first graduation. Sarah handed a certificate to a teen who once stood at a dark alley's edge. He looked at Delilah. "Can I call you Mama D?" Delilah opened her arms. No answer needed. On the sidelines, Ethan asked Daniel, "Hey, if that night at Pier we'd shot Marcus in the chest, maybe it would have been faster." Daniel looked across the long table where Mike was teaching kids to wrap bandages, Tim showing Maya a hash string, Sarah laughing freely, Jordan fetching lemonade. "Faster," he said, "but fewer people in this picture." Ethan nodded, raised his camera, and snapped a frame with all of them. That photo was later printed and placed beneath the yellow lamp, the ones who chose the third door. On the walk home, Delilah paused at the gate, hand flicking the yellow light as a reflex. She remembered the rainy night 20 years earlier, 4 shivering boys asking, "Are you calling the cops?" She hadn't. She opened the door, and in that moment another door, one without hinges, the door of the heart, opened too. Since then, they had crossed many nights, learning not to become monsters, not to burn it all, not to abandon anyone, just to turn the light on. If someone asked what this story teaches, Ethan would write at the end, "That love doesn't make us weak. It makes us patient. That justice never arrives on its own. It must be pulled toward the